So, hello everyone. My name is, can you hear me? First things first. Yes, okay, great. So my name is Lotte van Dijk. I'm a marketing director at Connective, and I'm the host for today during this fireside chat, where we will bust some myths about e-archiving and electronic signatures. But I am not alone today. I've invited my lovely colleague, Magali. Has been at Connective for many years now, so she is the expert when it comes to electronic signatures. And also Nicholas from Zefort. He is not here, but he is in Finland, so a bit more far away from here. But he will explain, and he is the expert about archiving, and he will give us more insights about that. But maybe, Nicholas, can you give us a few words about yourself, who you are, and what's your role at Zefort?
With pleasure. So, hi everyone. As said, my name is Nicholas Hakalaks. I'm a partner and head of accounts and partnerships at Zefort, and I'm actually coming to you today from the Arctic Circle, where summer is slowly turning into the dark winter. But I will talk to you in a bit more about the Zefort. But just wanted to take this opportunity in the beginning to thank Magali and Lotte for having me. It's always a great pleasure to talk about archiving and digital archiving and Zefort to an audience that probably haven't heard that much about us before. So thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Magali, maybe a few words about yourself in short?
Yeah, of course, you gave me already a nice introduction as an ancient furniture at Connective, which is basically true. But yeah, aside from a company in our sales, I'm responsible for all our partnerships around Connective. And one of them is, of course, you, Nicholas, with Zefort. And I'm really happy to tell the audience a bit more about the advantages, the challenges, and the nice cooperation and offering we can propose them.
Great. So that's indeed a very good introduction here. But first things first, let's go to some practicalities. It's about 45 minutes. We will try to stay between that time slot. You are muted, everyone, but if you have questions, we are here. Please ask them by raising your hand via the icon you see below, or you can always put your questions in the chat. We will try to answer it at the end of the session or during seeing when we have time to do that. The presentation, you will receive it, don't worry. Also the recording and also all the questions and the answers. We will send it by email, so you will have it afterwards. Yeah, most of the audience knows Connective already, but maybe you can summarize it in a few words.
Of course. So yeah, at Connective, we call ourselves experts in digital transaction management, and that's a big word with a large sense. But if I have to summarize it in a few simple words, we enable and give our clients and partners all tools to do business digitally. When I say digitally, don't understand me wrong. It can be digitally face-to-face, like I could sign with Lotte here now, or remotely over the internet, like we could do with Nicholas sitting in Finland. And when you do business digitally in those both ways, one of the first things you need to know is who is sitting next to me or in front of me on the other side of the internet connection. And that is something that we can solve with our identity hub, which authorizes you to identify persons regardless from their geographic location. And that identity data you can then use for an onboarding process or to proceed in a sales process or any kind of process or digital business you would like to kick off. The second step is, of course, to present them with digital content. I say content because it can be a document, a PDF, a Word, but it can also be an HTML. And with our Smart Documents engine, which is in short a template-based generator, you can generate all kind of information, documents based on incoming data, can be from the identification, can come from a CRM system, from a database. And based on a specific template, you can then generate personalized content. And then, of course, last but not least, we have what is our flagship product, and that is our eSignatures solution, which authorizes you to sign yourself and get all your documents signed by our counterparties. And that is in a nutshell what we do. We have 3 products that can be used or purchased independently, that of course also work perfectly together in standalone, or as you can see below, integrated with several of your business tools like Salesforce, Microsoft, SAP, but of course also with Zefort. And Nicholas will tell you a bit more about what Zefort is. So Nicholas, please go ahead.
Thank you, Magali. So starting from the broader perspective, as there's many people in the audience probably who haven't heard of us before. So we are, as said, a Nordic company originating from Finland, somewhere in between being a startup and a scale-up. So we founded the company about 5 years ago. And the first version of our tool that we will be touching upon in this webinar came out about 4 years ago. Today, we are a team of 12 people and a customer base of about 120 customers, mostly still in the Nordic region because that's our home, but we are seeing growing numbers of customers coming outside of that region. And what's interesting is that the fastest growing region outside of the Nordics is actually the Benelux region for Zefort. So we already have Zefort customers in the region. And what you see on the screen now is our vision. So basically what we try to do is go user experience first, build up a solution that offers an effortless way to manage intelligently your contracts. And if we go more into more detailedly what we do, I think Lotte, you can change to the next slide. This is kind of what basically underlines why we're arranging this webinar as well. So probably you've been in the audience, you know that a contract's lifecycle can be put into 3 different areas. Everything that happens before signature, when you work out the document, the contracts in short pre-sign, then you have the milestone of signature, and then you have everything that happens after that. When it comes to Zefort and what we've developed, we are fully what you would call a post-sign solution. So everything we have is to support keeping the contract and document active once it reaches the milestone of signature and you need to put it somewhere. So we want to make sure that that control is with the user, even though the contract is ready. And we want to be the best in that. But in order for us as a company to kind of make ourselves a suitable provider for our customers, we need to be part of the whole process in one way or the other, because all of the things, even though we're not here, it happens in the customer's process. And that's why we work with companies such as Connective, who are excellent in the phases that happen before Zefort. And we built everything with REST APIs, so we can do seamless integrations so that the end user doesn't really even notice that there is a change in environments, but the end result is that they have everything starting from the beginning to maintaining the contract after signature within Zefort. And that's where we want to be the good and the best at. Today, we work mostly with contract archiving, but we do see, and that's what drives our product development thus far, but we do see Zefort being used also for other types of documents, but contracts is in our core and in our nature. And I think this slide is a very good way of kind of underlining why we are such a good pairing with Connective.
Okay, great. Can you give us a little bit more insights about the specific partnership? What are the synergies between Connective and Zefort? I think the audience would like to know that too.
Yeah, I think the 2 core things that come when we start to think about what Zefort wants to build its product on, there's 2 things that stand out. One is user experience, and the other is high level of security. And I think those are kind of the connective dots also when working with Connective. And the end result being is that the common user of Connective and Zefort actually gets an experience where things happen easily, things happen quickly, but most importantly, things happen in a standardized high security way of managing these important contracts. So I think those 2 things that are in our core also are in the core with our partnership with Connective, together with the fact that technologically we've both built our solutions with integrations in mind from the beginning. So it's quite a seamless fit.
Fully correct. Nothing to add to that from my
Very
side.
good.
So audience, now it's your turn. We would like to get to know you a bit better. So we prepared a little poll with 1 question, which I'm launching now. Just wondering where you are today in terms of archiving, which will also be the top question or the top topic of today. So what do you do with your contracts after the signature? Nothing. Save it in SharePoint or another shared drive. Keep it in your email box, or maybe you already use a specific archiving solution you don't know, or other. You can always specify it in the chat. Give it a few more seconds. Cool. Okay, this is interesting. SharePoint, shared drive is the winner.
Yep, very familiar, very familiar.
Yeah, okay, I will end the poll and share the results with you so you can see it yourself. Voila, this is the result. Most of the people save it already in SharePoint and another shared drive, which I think is already a pretty good
It is. It tells you a story that there is actually a way of managing them, and many of the customers we import actually come from a scenario like that.
Yeah, some of you also answered that you archive it in the email inbox. So Nicholas, isn't that sufficient?
Well, the quick reaction is absolutely not. Even though we all know that it happens quite often, and in previous companies that I've worked with in sales, as a sales guy, you many times leave it in the inbox. But to kind of give you some reasoning on why email inboxes or something similar is not a very good way of archiving in the long run. So first, if we take a look at like the feature set of an inbox, an email tool, it's not very good for archiving anything, basically, even emails. So you, for instance, if you talk about the search functionalities of finding something important, something specific, quite a hassle. Then when it comes to contracts, you many times in contracts have dates, important information that you don't want to forget. You want reminders, notifications. Very hard to get those going in an email inboxes. Then we go to more kind of maybe dramatic themes like data security. You're relying on important information for an external email hoster. What if the owner of the email inbox leaves? What do you do with their contracts? How do you make sure everything is stored, etc.? So these are kind of things that are worth questioning. Then in a larger scale, some of your contracts might be running through an email inbox, but what do you do with all the other contracts that you have? Like what we think is intelligent contract management is that you don't have silos. You don't have different solutions for different type of contracts. You have one modern, easy to use, efficient archive where everything is neatly in place, which accepts contracts that come from different flows. Some might come from an inbox. They might end up in an inbox, but they should be able to be sent from the inbox into the archive in the same place where all of your physical papers are, all of your digitally signed papers are. So that's kind of the larger scale. Don't have silos, have one archive for everything important.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And if you should compare the SharePoint shared drive with a specific archiving solution, what would be the argument for you to go to the more specific or the Zefort archiving solution? I'm
of course a bit biased because I have the Zefort logo on my shirt, but based on experience and the discussions that I've had with our large enterprise customers that come from a SharePoint or a shared drive solution, the good thing is that you already have a solution in where your contracts are. So you know the place where they are. But then we come to things like user experience, easiness of use. In many times, the case with these shared drive solutions is that they take too much of your time to actually find the contract and manage the contract instead of working with the contract. And kind of our approach is to turn it around, that everything is as intuitive as possible, everything is as easy as possible. So I would say they're quite heavy compared to what we have developed at Zefort, and we try to make it an efficient solution.
Okay. I have another question, because today the world is becoming more and more digitally, of course, and I think this is the best way to go. But still there are people that stay reluctant to signing digitally, or they still print everything, lock it behind in a closet. Why is it secure to sign documents digitally? Or maybe Magali, you can elaborate on this. for signatures?
Yeah, of course, and I can give many arguments, but then we will pass the time frame of the webinar, so let me just summarize it. But yeah, I can state with confidence that electronic signing is a really secure and safe. First of all, because there is a legal framework, digital signatures are considered legally binding in most parts of the world, although in different parts they have their own several regulations, like you have the UEFA eSign Act in the US and Canada. You have in Europe eIDAS, we have Swiss Zertes law, in UK they're using another law. But what we can state is that they are considered legally binding. Of course, there are different levels. And if I, for this webinar, just dig a bit deeper into eIDAS, there are 3 types of signature: basic, advanced, and qualified. And even with the most basic signature, you already have a full guarantee that the document content can't be altered. So the document is certified and locked that after signature, there is no way that you can change your document once it has been signed without it being noticed. On a second note, on top of that, and this also will define the value or the level of signature you're working with from basic to qualified, is the certainty of the identity. It's the proof and everything we can offer to be sure of the identity of the signer. And of course, with a qualified, it's non-repudiative. You are 100% sure. With an advanced, you already have so much guarantees of the identity of the signer, and even more with a basic signature, because indeed, I can't tell as well if we sign on paper and it's done remotely, did the person really sign or was it somebody else? So yeah, by the fact that with a digital signature, you are fully certain of the integrity and the authenticity of the documents, I can state with confidence that I really trust in that in that breakdown.
Okay, and for archiving, is there any law there that can explain the?
As Magali said, this is a theme that you could talk and discuss about for long overdue the time that we've booked for this webinar. But I would say when it comes to our digital archiving, most of the kind of requirements and standards are focusing around data security, which is understandable because we're talking about sensitive, confidential information that you need to make sure that are stored and managed in a secure way. The thing about legal standards and requirements at the moment, based on our experience, mostly in the Nordics, is that it's mainly focused on GDPR. Again, very understandable because contracts have often very personal, sensitive data, and there's strict legal management, legal requirements to manage that information. But in addition to that kind of legal aspect of GDPR, there's quite a lot of market standards that need to be followed and fulfilled in order to kind of be a credible provider for hosting this kind of information. And luckily there are those. The different ISO ones are ones that are often expected. Then there's a bunch of customer audits that are being done to providers such as us before the companies want to give their sensitive data to us. And hosting is an important part. And as I said in the beginning, for Zefort, data security has been in the core from the beginning because we are a young company. For us to be a credible provider, we need to have that in place. So in the big picture, we have the ISO 27001 certificate to kind of complete the expectations of the market in terms of that. In addition, we are, of course, fully GDPR compliant. As I said, auditions of different kind are a yearly thing for us, and we look forward to them because we can utilize that data in different ways to share how we work with data security.
Yeah.
And then all in all, as I said, hosting is kind of on the everyday level, the discussion that is in the center the most. You know, we use our own private instances from our hosting provider, but in addition, we can provide Zefort to be hosted at the customer's location in a private instance. But to wrap up this answer that could go on and on and on for a long time, data security is the thing that is in the spotlight most when it comes to actually managing that information in the contracts. And going back to what Magali said in the beginning about what makes the agreement legally valid in the beginning, how do we reflect to it from the archiving perspective? I would say that from an archiving provider's perspective, it is important for us to keep that information which makes the contract legally binding accessible and visible, so that that legality doesn't disappear when it goes into the archive for years.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that still needs to evolve, of course, in digital world, because I often receive the question, okay, Magali, it's digitally signed and you have a framework and there's eIDAS, and when is my archive legal? And I know that is a difficult question to answer now directly for all of Europe, because now we're a bit in the situation we were before with digital signing, where there was a legislation, but Belgium interpreted it in a way, the US interpreted it in a way, France, Italy interpreted it in a way, until eIDAS arrived. So I know at this point in time, archiving is not included in eIDAS or in other electronic signature laws. I know this is going to change. I can't give a date. I know because we follow up on everything which is eIDAS, that archiving will be part of an evolution of eIDAS to basically say, okay, France stipulates this, Belgium stipulates this, the Nordics wants this for archiving, to also draw a line.
Exactly. But the important thing to remember that it's not a Wild West for archiving either, because there are these, they're not laws, but like the ISO certificates, their standards are out there, and they're mainly today in larger corporations driven by internal kind of high standards, which then everyone on the market needs to work with and apply to. But it's not, as you said, when we go to the further we go from the Nordics, the more we meet archiving requirements. But what makes it challenging for us is that those archiving challenges are still related to physical archiving. In a folder or a bank somewhere. So when we're talking about digital archiving, so it is a bit of a change in scenario in that case.
Okay, excellent. Thank you both. Yeah, that's for now, of course, but can we rest assured that like in 10 years, a signature that is put today, that it will still be valid then? The same for archiving. If you archive it today, will it still be secure in that archive in 10 years?
Well, maybe I can start, because we're the beginning point, having it signed and keeping it validly signed. So to put it easily, because it's, well, digital signing is quite technical and there's a lot combining it. But basically, imagine we sign. I already stated the legal bindingness is already regulated via all the laws we have in Europe and US, etc. So that's settled. But then it comes to, okay, it's signed. How long will it remain valid? On the first hand, it depends on the certificate validity. So it can be that you signed with a certificate that is 1 year valid, 2, 5, 10. So if it's just plain simple as that, your signature stays valid until the certificate expires, and then it has been expired. How can you avoid that? Of course, because that's not something we want. When we have a life insurance, we don't want to have that it expires after a certain amount of time. It's by adding 2 specific characteristics which make basically your signature long-term enabled. And that's something that you will maybe already have heard in some scenarios, but there's 2 characteristics. On top of the certificate, one thing is adding an official timestamp from an official timestamping authority that basically states this is the time of signature. So what do we know then? At the time of signature, the certificate was still valid. So that's one thing that we can encompass. The second one is the signer certificate verification. So that's something that can be added, and I can throw with terms like CRL and OCSP, and that's it doesn't matter in this thing. It's basically to verify that at the moment of signature, the signer certificate was valid, verified. So basically that the identity was verified, that, for example, if you sign with an identity card or something, it wasn't stolen, compromised, or whatever. So by adding a timestamp and doing the signer verification and adding that into a signature, you can easily create long-term enabled signatures. And that, of course, is something that is the core of our business, that we can, by default, provide this to our clients, that every document signed will also be long-term enabled, because you can validate that at moment of signature, the certificate was valid and the identity as well. So that's for signing. I talk a lot, I know, but in the end, we have it then. It's long-term enabled. So we can keep it for an indefinite time. There will be some retime stampings necessary if we go really in the details that are offered by us, but long-term enabled, the documents. But then, of course, we have to keep it somewhere to stay or to safeguard it until we need it. And that's when we come to solutions like Zefort. And I'm sure Nicholas can explain it better than I can.
Yeah, I think kind of it's a very good answer, because the legality comes from what you just said. So basically, the actions that make the documents legally valid happen prior to Zefort. So what you do in those phases before you archive it, make that document valid. Then coming back to my answer earlier, the job and the purpose of the archive is to keep that information transparent and accessible. So you can come back to it and make sure that, okay, this information makes this legally valid and that is shown to you. So it needs to be on par with kind of being able to show that information. And then what Magali said about restamping, that is also something that we recognize and offer solutions to do as well. But from the archives perspective, it's a bit more, I would say, boring, but there's less moving parts, because most of the actions that make the document legally valid happen prior to the document actually being archived, and our job is to keep that information accessible.
Great. I saw a question popping in that we can maybe already answer directly. And Nicholas, that's one for you. We will answer the other questions afterwards. As someone is asking, some participants are already using a specific archiving system, and they would like to know how Zefort can distinguish itself from, for example, Merak or another system. Good question.
Exactly, and I'm grateful that we in the end have the time for a short demo of what we have built. So that will give you a very good insight on what Zefort is what's in Zefort's core. I talked about user experience, ease of use, and high security, and hopefully some of those things will pop up in the short demo in the end. But then how do you compare with the solutions that you utilize today? I hope the demo will answer that question for you.
Okay, great. And I think at the end, we will have some time to answer all the other questions too, of course. A bit too fast. Just a question for you, Nicholas. We know how we can implement e-signatures in companies, and we know that it's actually pretty easy to do, but what about the archiving solution? Does it need heavy IT implementation? And if we combine it, is it difficult to implement?
That's actually, we talked about in the topic of the webinar, we talked about busting myths, and that's probably one of the myths at least coming regarding archiving, that in order for have a secure, proper archive, it needs to be heavy to use and heavy to implement. But we've tried to break that belief that it doesn't have to be like that. Everything that we've inbuilt in our technology, we utilize AI, we utilize other features that make Zefort are not, none of them are customer generic. It's a cloud-based solution. And if I get an email 30 minutes from now from someone in the webinar saying, hey, I'd like to test Zefort, I can open the account instantly and it's ready. So basically, easiness of use, no IT project required is something that we've tried to build a USP on, so that you actually can focus on the documents themselves and not worry about the tools too much.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think people want to see it now. So Nicholas, can you show us maybe a flow of when a document is signed, how you can archive it securely so they can visualize it, and maybe you can emphasize the differences with other archiving solutions here.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen now, and you should be able to see my screen now.
Excellent, thank you.
Perfect. So I've talked a lot about Zefort now for the last 30 minutes, and many of you probably haven't, as said, heard about the tool before. So not to run anything too heavy, just a quick walk, a look and feel of the tool and the key kind of features and ideas, what makes Zefort what it is. So I'll take 10 minutes of your time at this point of the webinar to kind of give you more concrete information about the tool. So the main thing you need to remember of Zefort is, as I said, it's fully a post-sign tool. So what you see here is made to support that part of the process. And we talked about eArchiving, eSignatures, and that's one flow that Zefort can support. But the idea with Zefort and the way Zefort is used in most of our customers' everyday life is that it's actually a hub for all of the contracts, no matter where they come from. So that's the background situation. But into the demo itself, so we run it at my.zefort.com. That's where you log in. You can actually customize the address to contracts@customername.com if you want through a private instance. But most of our customers log in here. You can also embed it in a CRM if you want to run your contracts in a CRM. I've logged in as a demo user called John, and when John logs in his account, this is what he will see. He sees in his account a total of 305 contracts. These contracts consist of ones that he has uploaded into the system or his colleagues have uploaded and he has been granted rights to work a view with. So if this would be a proper customer or an organizational account, it could have 20,000 documents, but John only sees 305. So we can make very strong limitations on who sees what. I will run you through three different main areas of Zefort. The first one is import of documents. How do you make sure that you actually support different flows? Then I'll show you our search, which is probably one of the most used feature, and then some other areas as well when it comes to an individual contract. But the first one is importing the documents into the archive, and there's many ways to do it. We're talking about the first one many times here during the webinar. We can integrate through an API to Connective, and once that API integration is in place, the API, Zefort's API, will automatically go check and if there's new signed agreements at Connective account, and when they are, they will be automatically fetched into Zefort. So you don't need to look after that process once it is in place. So it's a completely automatic, intuitive process between Connective and Zefort. But you might have other types of papers that you want to archive as well. So we do support those as well. First of all, you can utilize email. I click on John's username and I find something called email inboxes. Every Zefort user has their own customer-specific email address. This means that if you have documents that you want to archive in a device somewhere that's capable of sending emails, let's say they're an attachment in an email or physical papers that you scan. If you scan and send them to this email address here, they will automatically fly into Zefort or from your email inbox as well. You can also do drag and drop, of course, and manual upload and so forth. So we support different ways of importing documents. This document here is one that to save time, I pre-uploaded. This has come from Connective. And when you upload it, what happens is a very crucial part of Zefort. We first run an OCR analysis on all of the text that's in the document entity. Every word, every page, everything is analyzed. Then we do a layout structure for the visual appearance of the contract. We look up on where are the headers, footers, graphs, everything visual. This information is then sent to our AI. And what our AI tries to do is interpret that information to find the contractual metadata automatically from the contract. So Zefort is all about user experience and minimizing the need for human work. So the AI actually tries to fill in the metadata automatically. And when I open that contract later on, you will see how it's done that exactly. So that's one way. That's part number one, different ways of importing contracts. Then other key area that I'm going into now is our search, because we want to make an efficient active archive, make it easy for people to find their contract and contract information. And the search logic that we try to reach is a very search engine-like, basically meaning that everything in the contracts can be searched directly. So you basically have your own internal Google. You can either search directly on all of your contracts, or you can use a variety of filters, only focus on contracts that have ended or contract that will be ending in a month. This list here is what we call preset filters. Here on the left, I have my filters that I can decide very detailedly myself, only search from contracts that have a certain upload date or a certain effective date, only from a certain contract party, binder, and so forth and so forth. And one actually quite useful filter can be found on top of these contracts. When you click on a logo here, you get to find similar contracts. So we look at the visual appearance and text and then compare it with other contracts and try to find similar contracts as you decide. We start with 80% similarity, but you can decide the similarity percentage yourself. For instance, now we have 21 contracts that have a similarity percentage of 74. So this is also one filter that can be utilized in the search. But the search in itself is quite easy. You give a search term like the word party, it's probably going to be in a lot of different contracts. Yes, I have 219 contracts of contracts containing the word party, some form of the word party or a synonym of the word party somewhere in the contract. I get this preview of the contracts that contain the given search term. And if I want to browse through a specific contract, I can then open the one that I want to work with and then browse through the search results as they appear in the text. So the search is probably the type of feature that most of our customers use on an everyday basis. They want to quickly find information from a contract. So first, we start off by actually making it as easy as possible to make the contract reach the archive. And then once it's in the archive, we want to build features that make it as intuitive as possible to find the information that's useful for you. The search is one. You can use logical operators to run automated searches, run reports, whatever you want to utilize from this contract. And the third thing that I'll show you in this really quick look and feel walkthrough of Zefort is how do you make sure that a specific contract is not missed or any information that is important is not missed. This is the contract that I've uploaded in the beginning. And this is the information you see when you open a specific contract. You have some tabs on top. I won't run through them all just to save time, just the relevant ones. Here on the right, you have the actual agreement at all times to be shared and worked with. And on the left, you have information that is relevant to the tab you've chosen. And the first one is details or metadata. So this information here is actually information that the AI tries to find for me. So it looks for certain standard metadata, like the contract parties, which is our contract, are here on page number 3, together with their business IDs. Then what's really important is dates. So it tries to interpret the contract so that it finds the date section and fills in the date metadata for me into the contract. Yeah. Also, there's a tag field to be used as a support for.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Nicholas, but indeed, we already had some questions coming in as asking if Zefort reads detailed info for the research or if they have to put in the info manually. So you basically responded it with
yes.
this part, but it would be good to just emphasize it, how this can work. That's indeed not all data needs to be input manually per contract.
Exactly. Very good question. And kind of a couple of disclaimers. The first one is that we're talking about AI. It works at a high level already, but it's not perfect. So every now and then it does maybe get something wrong. Everything can be fixed, everything can be corrected. And every time you do so, you also actually send information to the AI, making it learn as well. The other one is language. At the moment, we support English, German, Dutch, and we're growing that number of and the Nordic languages, of course. And we're growing that number as soon as we get new contracts with new languages in. So we teach the AI to work with new contracts. But finding contracts and contract information in Zefort is basically a combination of two things. The first one is the OCR related search, which is in no way language restricted. It supports 150 languages and gives you all the search results instantly. The other one is the AI and the metadata that you're seeing now. And this actually, you don't need to do any of this. You can do if you want to, but you don't need to do it. This gives you very good support into the search, and it's quite intuitive built into the tool.
Thank you.
So
we will let you continue and then ask the other questions.
Yes, I will actually. This is for those of you interested. I'm happy to run a more in-depth demo of the tool at a later stage. Just send me an email and talk about kind of the specs of the tool. But before I end this quick walkthrough, some areas that are worth mentioning that were already touched upon in the webinar earlier. One is activities. So these are notifications that are built into the tool around important dates in the contracts. These can be manual or these can be automated, but the end result is that Zefort will actually send you notifications about important like end dates and things you don't want to miss out on. And then through this, you can actually manage your contracts future in a very transparent way and not miss out on any critical information. And the final thing that I'm kind of showing just to underline Zefort's purpose is that Zefort, as I said, wants to be a place for all of your contracts and on a contractual level, a place for all of your contract information. This means that within one certain contract framework, you can store all of your contract files, but also, for instance, emails. So we can create a contract specific email in which you can store all contract related correspondence that has been sent around with email. Just forward them into this address and you have those as well. Kind of just to underline the idea of the tool. So that was just a quick look and feel of the tool. To wrap up what Zefort is, in its core, it's a high security archive with bank level security. And then packaged in what we try to do is a user-friendly user experience, high level of user experience, which leads to a result where actually you don't spend time working with the tool. You can focus on working with the documents. So that was a quick look and feel walkthrough.
Thank you so much, Niklas. We received another question, which was asked us personally, but I think it will be interesting for everyone. Is there a possibility to import a very big amount of agreements? So also non-digitally signed, so you have one place for all your contracts?
Yes. Mass uploads of different kinds are easily done in Zefort. So I think we had a customer who uploaded 8,000 documents at one upload, which wasn't really user-friendly, but it was possible. So yes, and they don't need to be digitally signed. As I said, you can send it from the scanner directly and the document and the system will work with it.
Excellent. Another question, is archiving GDPR compliant if you keep contracts for an indefinite term, even if business relations, for example, are terminated?
Yeah, so Zefort is fully GDPR compliant, meaning that everything we host within the EU. Then when it comes to things like deleting data, that's something that we talked about internally quite a lot. And thus far, we haven't implemented a feature that would automatically delete contracts because there's always a risk. So eventual deletion has to be done by the human, but you can create supporting functionalities to remember to do it. But everything is hosted within the EU and is fully GDPR compliant.
Thank you. Quickly, two last questions because we are running out of time. There was a question, does it recognize the same contracts and only one and file one?
Yes, it does. Zefort has full support for duplicate recognition. So if you upload a contract that is already in Zefort, it will let you know, hey, this is a duplicate. Do you want to do it? And you can then cancel it. So we have full support for finding duplicates. Yes.
Okay, and then a question for Magali. Do you have info references on Asian law regarding digital signature validness?
Yeah, we do. So in Asia, signatures are recognized. However, there's not a law like in Europe, eIDAS, that's basically lays it out for whole Asia. They interpret it independent on the country. So for example, in our legal white paper, we already did a full compliancy certification against Singapore and Hong Kong law, because those had specific requirements for digital signatures to be recognized. In China, for example, it's a more open law, where they state that a signature cannot be refused based on the fact that it's digital. So they recognize the signature from the moment it's physical, digital, or even verbally spoken out. There's a law around that as well. In the UAE, it's also more an open system where they authorize you to use signatures in e-commerce. So yeah, it's In 80% is fully allowed and recognized, but it depends on the region in Asia where you want to use digital signing. So if you have a specific question around a specific region, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to give you more details than what I told you now.
Okay, so maybe to summarize everything, Magali, the benefits in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's I think it was quite clear that both by using Zefort and digital signing, or an archive and digital signing, you can get rid of paper. It's not only because you want to get rid of paper, but by making everything digitally, even if it's contracts that were not signed or on paper, you basically make them searchable and living documents, which you saw also in the demo, that you can put actions onto them while you couldn't do it before. Of course, I don't have to tell you to save time. That's mainly for digital signing. If you look in times of Corona, where we couldn't be together, where you still were able to do business, it's something that I don't need to explain to you. But in normal times, which I hope we will soon all be living again, you also have a lot of CEOs or business partners that are abroad or traveling, where digital signing can be easily done, and then also securely stored in a digital way into an archive. We talked a lot about legal compliance on both aspects of this webinar, archiving and signing. So we will send you the slide deck and some more information around that. Flexibility, it's a bit what I touched upon already. You can do it anywhere, anytime, so you don't need to physically go store things or upload. And what the core of our business is, of course, are the two last ones, both for Zefort and Connective, is security on both ends, so that we take that burden out of the hands of our customers, that they don't need to be afraid or worried about security or certifications. Because as stated, we both are ISO certified. On Connective side, we are a trust service provider for our services. And the last one is basically the most important one. I can tell you all the above points and try to convince you and be the evangelist of how good everything is. If you can't use it, or if your users can't use it, I don't have anything to tell. So user experience is at the core of our business, and it will remain that way. So thank you for listening to us, and I give the word back to Lotte.
Yes, of course. Thank you. First of all, Nicholas, to be here, to make your time,
thank you.
Explain more about archiving. I hope we answered all of your questions. If that's not the case, please don't hesitate to send us an email via contact@zefort.com or via info@connective.eu, or ask us for a demo. We are very happy to show you more. So thank you for staying with us, and I would like to say have a nice lunch and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks Lotte and Magali for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.